Sean Phillips and Ariel Cortland had one child together before Cortland became pregnant with Katherine. Cortland described a tense relationship in which she and Phillips often argued about baby Kate. Before the birth, he favored abortion. Afterwards, he pushed her to pursue adoption, even while refusing to publicly claim the baby as his own, Cortland said. Phillips was upset when Cortland printed out birth announcements. He was also upset when she listed him as the baby Kate's father on an insurance application for the baby through the Department of Human Services. The government paperwork eventually led Phillips to being contacted about child support. Paternity issues. During Ariel's pregnancy, Sean disputed paternity of Katherine to multiple parties, including friends and family. During Ariel's pregnancy and after the birth of Katherine, Sean urged Ariel to place the baby up for adoption numerous times and provide Ariel money to use for an adoption. He was mad about it because he didn't believe what I said, Cortland said. Phillips thought she was after the money. Even though she didn't like the idea of adoption, Cortland admitted she sometimes told Phillips she was considering the idea. I thought I would change my mind if it came down to it and we found the right home, she said. Subsequent to the birth of Katherine, Sean was angry about being served with paternity to determine paternity. The tests were scheduled for June 29, 2011. Sean's test was scheduled for 12, and Ariel and Katherine's test were scheduled for 1. Sean went to his scheduled paternity test, and around noon on the 29th, 2011, and had samples taken. The disappearance and the 911 call. On the day Phillips was supposed to get a paternity test, the couple had been arguing. Back at home, around 1 o'clock, Cortland ran inside to get 4-month-old Kate's stroller while Phillips and Kate waited in the car. When she returned, Sean was gone. After many phone calls to reach Sean, Ariel called 911. Dispatch. 911, what's your emergency? Ariel. Birch Lake Apartments in Ludington? Okay, what's the apartment number? Yes, it's 108. Okay, is that where you're calling from? No, I'm at a friend's. I had to use her phone, but I'll walk over there. Okay, that's where. So are you going to be over there, apartment 108, and who am I speaking to? Ariel Cortland. Okay, Ariel, and are you calling from... Phone number of Ariel's friends edited by Central Dispatch. Yes. Okay, what is it that you'd like to report, Ariel? The father of my child took our daughter, and I don't know where he's at, and with her, and she has my daughter, and he has no legal rights over her. I was supposed to take her for a DNA test at 1 o'clock, and for him, for child support, and he came over, and I thought he was going to give us a ride there. So we got in the car, and then I found something in my house, so I ran back upstairs to get my keys, and I came down, and they were gone. Okay, alright, he was supposed to transport you to a DNA. Are you sure he didn't go there? Did you call the courthouse? No, he already went there for his appointment, which was like an hour before mine. He had already took his test. He just does not want me to bring Kate there. Dispatch. Ariel. Because he knows that Kate is his and he doesn't want to pay child support for her. Okay, so he was supposed to give you a ride to the DNA test at the courthouse, right? No, it's at the hospital. At the hospital? Yeah. Okay, how long ago did he take off? Just now, 5 minutes ago. I've been trying to call his phone, but he's not answering. Okay, what kind of vehicle is he in? He's driving a silver Intrigue. Okay, Intrigue. Do you happen to know the plate, or, no, I'm sorry. Okay, that's alright. Okay, Ariel, we'll send someone over to you to file the report, okay? Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. The search begins. Late that afternoon, Ludington police tracked Sean Phillips down to his parents' house. Kate was nowhere to be found. During a routine pat-down, cops found her baby clothes wadded up in Phillips' pocket. He was arrested on the spot. An intense search for baby Kate was launched. While the community was out looking for baby Kate, cops were interrogating the father, and he was turning the tables, pointing the finger at the mother. Police weren't buying it. At a press conference in April, Ludington Police Chief Mark Barnett announced details of evidence found in Sean Phillips' shoes, sparking the plan to search specific areas in the same time frame when the baby Kate disappeared. Soil scientists from Michigan State University found a seed of sedge, a form of grass, which was identified to be extremely rare sedge only found in a few locations in the surrounding area. Police believe that they can locate the area where the rare sedge and other rare types of plant material that were found on Phillips' shoes are located. They can find the body of baby Kate. a couple of trees, and there's a few species of moss, a few species of sedge, which are also small grasses if they grow in the wetlands, said Jonathan Spielhoff, a volunteer and plant biologist from the Michigan State University. The location that would support all these elements is so rare and specific to the surrounding area that it's only a matter of time before the exact location is found. Authorities paired nearly 80 volunteers and botanists and search and rescue volunteers to create 5 search teams. We're going to be all in a line going through a grid of the area that is set up on a GPS, and we will see species that we might think might be it. We'll call it out, and then when we call them out, we'll have a designated specialist in the team who will come and actually identify the plant, says Spielhoff. Authorities say they are hopeful that this weekend search efforts could bring them closure to finding baby Kate, but they are also hoping for closure. The bottom line on this whole 2 days of searching is to find some closure to the community and family of the missing baby case that's been open for 2 years. Chief Deputy Bob Brown, Mason County Sheriff's Department. Request for warrant. In order to get a warrant for the charge, Mason County Sheriff's Officer Detective Mike Kinney gave the following statement under oath Friday, October 4th, 2011, in the 79th District Court. On June 29, 2011, the Ludington Police Department, along with the Mason County Sheriff's Offices, started an investigation into the disappearance of baby Katherine Shelby Elizabeth Phillips, then a 4-month-old child, taken from Birch Lake Apartments located in the city of Ludington, County of Mason. Katherine Shelby Elizabeth Phillips is a biological child of Ariel Cortland and Sean Michael Phillips and was born February 12, 2011. During Ariel Cortland's pregnancy, Sean Phillips disputed paternity of Katherine Phillips to multiple parties including friends and family. During Ariel Cortland's pregnancy and after the birth of Katherine Phillips, Sean Phillips argued Ariel Cortland to place the child up for adoption numerous times and provide Ariel Cortland with money to use as an abortion. Subsequent to the birth of Katherine Phillips, Sean Phillips was angry after being served with paternity to determine paternity. The tests were scheduled for June 29, 2011. Sean Phillips' test was scheduled at noon, and Ariel Cortland and Katherine Phillips' were scheduled for 1 p.m. Sean Phillips went to a scheduled paternity test around noon, and the samples had taken. Subsequent to the paternity test, Sean Phillips went to the apartment with Ariel Cortland and urged an argument ensued about placing Katherine Phillips up for adoption. This argument continued as Sean Phillips, Ariel Cortland, and Katherine Phillips got into Sean's vehicle to travel to the hospital for DNA of Ariel Cortland and Katherine Phillips. Sean Phillips did not drive to the hospital for the scheduled DNA test of Ariel Cortland and Katherine Phillips, but rather drove them to the Department of Human Services where the argument over adoption continued in the parking lot. After the argument, Ariel asked to return to her residence. While en route, she called the hospital to tell them she would be late. When they returned to Cortland's residence shortly after 1 p.m., Cortland went into the apartment building to get a stroller. Katherine Phillips was still in Sean Phillips' vehicle. When Cortland exited the apartment building seconds later, Phillips and his vehicle and Katherine were gone. Katherine Phillips was last seen with Sean Phillips on June 29, 2011 at 1:08 p.m. at Birch Lake Apartments by Ariel Cortland. Katherine Phillips has not been seen since. Sean Phillips was apprehended at 4:23 at his residence at 280 West Millerton Road in Scottville, Michigan. In his possession were found the clothes of Katherine Phillips was last seen wearing. Her clothes were found in Sean Phillips' pocket, rolled up and inside out. A subsequent search of the vehicle found Katherine Phillips' car seat, diaper bag, concealed in the trunk. A damp diaper was also found in the passenger compartment of the vehicle. At the time of Sean Phillips' apprehension, Phillips told officers he was not telling them the whole truth. Following his apprehension, Sean Phillips was given 3 conflicting statements as to the whereabouts of Katherine Phillips. Ariel Cortland Hazer was told to Sergeant Hartley, Officer Custer, and Detective Sergeant Posma on 6/9 of 2011. He gave her to a guy for adoption, a note recovered from a day-old clothing on 7/11 of 2011 by Deputy John Long. In a letter written by Sean Phillips to Ariel Cortland around August 7, 2012, Sean stated he was angry when he ripped the car seat out of the vehicle, thus throwing Katherine Phillips from the car seat. Sean stated that he felt like he killed her, so he left her in a peaceful place. Circumstantial evidence of death as required by People v. Jamie Allen Nelson, 493 Michigan 933, 2013, exists as follows. Sean Phillips was the last person seen with Katherine Phillips. He was in possession of her diaper bag, car seat, the clothes she was last seen wearing, His whereabouts are unaccountable between the time of 1:08 p.m. and 3:35 p.m. on June 29, 2011, while he had Katherine Phillips. Katherine Phillips was 4 months old at the time of her disappearance, and she is not capable of caring for herself. Sean Phillips stated in a letter that he was with Katherine Phillips when she died and that Katherine Phillips was thrown from the car seat after he ripped the car seat out in an angry manner. Sean Phillips had motive to kill Katherine Phillips relative to a pending paternity case. Extensive analysis by scientists of the University of Michigan, Michigan State University, and the Chicago Field Museum of Biological Material and Soil on the shoes of Sean Phillips has narrowed the probable location to the crime to a specific wetland area in Mason County. With that information, I submit to you a warrant request for homicide. Magistrate Patricia Baker responded, "All right. Probable cause does exist for issuance of this complaint and warrant on this known defendant based on the facts presented by this detective and preserved on the record." Michigan Attorney General Bill Schulte came to Ludington to announce his office is partnering with Mason County Prosecutor Paul Spagnola to prosecute this open murder charge with Assistant AG Donna Pendergrass to try the case with Spagnola. Excerpt from the letter. When I brought you back, I didn't park, so that would just get out and not pull any more shit or try to keep me here any longer. Even when you sat there with the door open and foot out and I had to interrupt you 3 times, I don't care, before you got out. You said something like, "Whatever, fuck you, and I'm going to ruin your life," then walked around and spent a minute getting Kate out. I was pretending to be busy with my phone or something so you would hopefully just leave me alone. I heard the door shut, saw you walk off, your hands in front of you, not at your sides, like you were holding Kate. I drove away. A blonde lady by the office and I looked at each other as I passed. There was some stuff I wanted to get done in town, but I was tired and hungover and trying to decide whether to put it off till another time. Stopped at Wendy's to get something to eat and for time to make up my mind, but mostly to piss. The phone kept ringing there. I went back to the car and ate. The whole time, the fucking phone wouldn't stop ringing. I could feel through my shorts to hit the volume button to silence the call. But the seat was too far up for me to get out of my pocket to make it stop ringing because the car seat was in the way. It's driving me crazy. I was so mad at you. So for that day, everything lately, for everything ever, maybe ever. When I tried to move the seat back to get the phone, it was blocked by the car seat, and I was pissed that you left it in there and just tried to make me bring it back later. So pissed that I got out and was just throwing it around into that area between Burger King. I pulled, but it was jammed between the seats. It just made it worse. I grabbed it at the top and ripped it out as hard as I could. She was thrown from it. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I held her for a long time. Seemed like forever. Maybe an hour, maybe a minute. Maybe not have been that long. I can't explain a lot. Some things can only be lived. In a way I couldn't understand it. It didn't seem real. I didn't want it to be. I felt like falling and like my head would explode. I couldn't think. Couldn't do anything. It eventually sunk in or something. I started crying. Couldn't stop. I've never cried that hard. Seemed just like my throat was closing. Mind was racing. Yet I couldn't think. I guess I was in shock. I never even tried to help her. Never even thought to. Just sat there holding her. I don't think anything anybody could have done. Still, I used to hate myself for not trying. I think there was an hour in that after like a half hour in that it wasn't until right before I left that I realized calling 911. It was too late. I wouldn't be able to talk. I wouldn't know what to say anyways. I couldn't bring myself to pick up the phone. Scared of it and the world. In a way, I felt like I had killed her. You and I. I needed to believe I didn't hurt her and that it was all your fault. Ending of the letter. There's been other letters to you, ones that were never sent. Oddly, this one has done the worst of all in telling you, yet it's the one I'm making myself send. If I don't again, then when? There will never be one I feel right with. These things mostly need to be talked about in person. Annette has the original, tear-soaked one, addressed to you, only includes that lie about me thinking you could have possibly killed her. There's still lots of things I don't understand, 90% of the things you told them were lies. Some things I don't know if it was me or them. You lied to them some of the things. At the time, it was something how you used her and acted like a lot of time that you could give a fuck less about her. How you kept dragging out the adoption, which would just make it harder on her. Couldn't believe you wanted to do that test before finishing the adoption that day, just to make me pay. I never once thought you had any intention whatsoever of keeping her. Still don't know why. So many things you did, said, or whatever, blamed for so long. There's so many stupid little things that could have made such a difference. Things like as small as a phone call or using the bathroom. Both of us fucked up some. I'd give anything to go back to that day in January. That summer I went to Georgia. I want my parents to know. Things spouses tell each other in confidence can't be made to testify. But we aren't married yet in the eyes of the government. Then hearsay can't be used. So if you told them it would be hearsay, here it didn't come from me. But grand jury can sometimes allow hearsay. Could you ask your attorney about that stuff? If you want to ask me things, try to do it all at once so we aren't hearing incriminating stuff more than we need to. Out of time for mail. Destroy these. We'll talk. Ariel files for marriage to Sean. Cortland insists her plan to wed is not an indication that she's in love with her child's abductor and apparent killer, but a part of her continued efforts to get to the bottom of what happened to babykate. I need to have the answers, she told Wood TV. I've taken all the steps to try to avoid this. The woman is considered a victim in this case, so it is barred from visiting Phillips in prison. A bid to appeal the decision was unsuccessful, so she plans to marry him in the belief that becoming part of his immediate family would get around the rules. I still have a billion questions for him, she told the TV station. Cortland explained she had a lot of criticism for her decision to wed Phillips, including from her own mother, but she insisted it's purely means to an end. A marriage license is a paper. I'm not saying that I'm gonna spend my rest of my life with him. It's saying I want to marry him for a month, or however long it takes for me to sit down with him and say, hey, what the fuck happened? That's all it's meant to me. That's it. The prison told us that we were never allowed to see each other or talk, she said in the report. We weren't able to have any contact whatsoever unless we were immediately family. Phillips had previously proposed marriage to Cortland, but the two were never married, she said. The Dr. Phil interview. Taken from the Dr. Phil website. Theories swirled about the fate of Ludington's long-missing baby Kate when her relatives met on the Dr. Phil show, with ideas including that she had died accidentally, not given to unknown people in Germany, and been killed intentionally. Ariel Cortland, mother of the missing baby, said that she went on the show to set the record straight and answer her critics. If you don't grieve a certain way, people think you're guilty, she said on the show. People think we shouldn't be out shopping. We should be at home slitting our wrists. Mason County law enforcement officials said that they are investigating baby Kate's disappearance as a possible homicide. No body has ever been found in connection with the case. A letter that appeared to be from Phillips to Cortland said that she had died accidentally, but that letter has not been authenticated. In the letter, the writer said he drove away from Cortland's apartment believing she had the baby with her, but had left the car seat in the car under him to control him by forcing him to return the seat to her, and that he ripped the seat in frustration from its position jammed between the back car seats, intending to ditch it. He claimed the baby was thrown from it. I don't know. Dr. Phil questioned that claim, setting up a demonstration with the car seat and asking a man in the audience who he estimated to be about Phillips' size to pick up the 6-pound car seat, and then picked it up again with the weight representing the 12-pound baby. The audience member said he noticed a substantial difference in the weight of the seat. Cortland said she thought Phillips knew Kate was in the seat, but may have not realized she was unbuckled. You don't sling the car seat thinking the baby's buckled in it, so it's okay, Dr. Phil responded. Other guests include Cortland's father, Tim Cortland, Phillips' mother, Kim Phillips, and Phillips' attorney, Annette Smedley. Tim Cortland said that he thought Ariel Cortland didn't turn in Phillips' letter to police because she wanted to protect him, and that she was more concerned about not seeing him while he served his 10-year sentence than she was about to get justice for Kate. Tim Cortland said he didn't believe Ariel Cortland was involved in Kate's disappearance, but he did believe that she had lied to protect Phillips, even using the baby as a pawn to keep Phillips. I knew in my heart he murdered the baby, he said. I'm going to be totally honest today, and I think it's going to cost me my daughter. Phillips' mother, Kim Phillips, rejected the idea that he had killed Kate intentionally or accidentally. I know that Sean is not capable of brutally murdering. He did not do anything to hurt the child, she had said. Kim Phillips theorized that the baby might be dead, but as a result of an accident that Sean Phillips didn't cause. It was a hot day, she said, and Cortland may have put something over the car seat so Phillips didn't see the baby was there and left her in the car with the windows rolled up where she died from the heat. How else would you explain she was there not making any sound, she said. Phillips' attorney, Annette Smedley, said Cortland's story has been inconsistent and she, not Phillips, was the last one to have the baby. The court believed Phillips was the last one to have the baby before she went missing. Smedley said the identities of several prospective adopted families were on Cortland's computer, and the husband of one of the couples traveled to Germany shortly after the baby went missing. She claimed law enforcement never checked if he was traveling with the baby. Dr. Phil said he wanted to check out the Germany connection. The baby could be in Germany and no one's bothered to check, he asked. Smedley said the letter has not been authenticated, and even if she did know if Phillips wrote it, she would be forbidden from saying so because of the attorney-client privilege. If this letter is from him, that would determine that this was an accident, she said. He should be charged with manslaughter, not with murder, if that's what the letter says is true. For her part, Cortland said she believes Kate died after Phillips took her, but that he isn't the cold-blooded killer some people have portrayed him as. Sean does care, she said. I guarantee you, that kid does have remorse. A few twists in the case. Twist 1. Documents filed at the Mason County Courthouse show Sean Phillips is the father of missing infant Katherine Kate Phillips, and his attorney is seeking to have the charge of kidnapping he is facing dismissed. Under state law, a natural or adoptive parent cannot be charged or convicted of kidnapping, child enticement. Phillips remains lodged in the Mason County Jail on some charges of $500,000 bond. That charge is a felony, punishable by up to life in prison. In Smedley's motion, she requests the charge be dismissed and Sean be released from custody. A hearing on the motion was set for September 14th. Smedley submitted a report from the Michigan State Police Lab in Grand Rapids in support of her motion. The report shows that DNA samples were taken from both Sean Phillips and Ariel Cortland, Kate's parents, and a DNA sample from babykate was taken from a pacifier/bottle nipple. According to the report, comparison of the DNA profile submitted revealed shared common alleles consistent with inheritance of full offspring. The report was dated complete August 4th and received by Mason County Prosecutor's Office August 11th. Smedley's motion for dismissal was filed in the Mason County Clerk's Office on August 23rd. Twist 2. Noting almost a dozen examples of law and court rules that state that removing a judge from a case should be an extreme step only used in extraordinary situations. 49th Circuit Court Judge Scott Hill Kennedy ruled that Judge Peter Waddell can remain in the Sean Phillips murder case in the 51st Circuit Court, where Hill Kennedy served as a visiting judge on Monday. Hill Kennedy was appointed by the state court's administration office to hear the motion to disqualify Waddell filed by Michigan Assistant Attorney General Donna Pendergrast. The Michigan Attorney General Office and the Mason County Prosecutor's Office, Paul Spagnola, charged Phillips with open murder in 79th District Court, Waddell's court, in early October 2013. Phillips is charged in killing his then infant daughter, baby Kate, in June of 2011. By September 2014, citing a lack of evidence of criminal action, Waddell dismissed the murder charge against Phillips. Waddell's contention was that the peaceful place letter in which Phillips confesses to having his daughter in a peaceful place following her death that day shows that Kate's death was an accident as much as it does any criminal action on the part of the father. Pendergrast and Spagnola then appealed to the ruling of the 51st Circuit Court, which was Judge Richard Cooper's court until the end of 2014. Cooper ruled in December of 2014 that prosecutors could proceed with their murder case. Because current 51st Circuit Court Judge Susan Snagowski and Mason County Probate Judge Jeff Nellis had history with the case, they disqualified themselves, putting the case back in front of Waddell, who, as a chief judge of the county, appointed himself to hear the circuit court portion of the case. Pendergrast had sought to have Waddell disqualified himself last month, but he declined, leading to Hill Kennedy's appointment by the SCAO. What does that mean? The ruling means that Waddell will remain on the case. likely next hearing a final conference between the attorneys, barring an appeal by prosecutors. However, there could still be a stay in the court case if defense attorney David Glassey's appeal of Cooper's ruling to bind Phillips over is successful in the State Court of Appeals. A final conference is a point in a criminal case prior to the trial where prosecutors extend plea bargains, if any plea bargain is to be offered. Since Phillips is already serving 10 to 15 years in prison on an earlier conviction for unlawful imprisonment in caged appearance, which was originally an unlawful kidnapping charge, a plea agreement offer is unlikely. Pendergast said her case had 3 prongs, with the appearance of impropriety being the primary prong. She said the fact that Waddell already ruled on their case, stating that they lacked the evidence necessary not only for a conviction but even for probable cause, was a problem. She said allowing him to sit and rule in a case where he's already ruled caused potentially irreversible damage to the prosecution's case. She said public confidence in the court is eroded when there's an appearance of impropriety and cited social media comments from newspaper websites as examples of people concerned about Waddell continuing on with the case. The second prong of her case was that Waddell, because he had already ruled on the case, could not perform all the duties of a circuit court judge in the case of a bench trial. She said Waddell couldn't serve as a judge during a bench trial and appropriately reviewed the lower court's ruling because he had made the lower court ruling. Glassey pointed out during his arguments that her argument there held no water since he would have to request a bench trial, which he has not, and that the prosecution would have to grant permission for a bench trial, which it certainly would not. The third prong of Pendergast's arguments focused on the ruling and statements Waddell made during the preliminary hearing that she believed were in error. Carefully noting that she was not trying to damage the integrity of any judge or court, she laid out what appeared to be a pattern of rulings against the prosecution. She noticed that she was aware that adverse rulings were not basis for disqualification, but outlined the arguments just the same. The judges speak. Hill Kennedy said the issues brought by Pendergast were notable, but did not rise to the level of requiring a disqualification. He said because Judge Cooper had already corrected Waddell on his previous ruling and made it possible for Waddell to preside over the remaining aspects of the case. As for the appearance of impropriety, he said that was to be interpreted narrowly and provided casework to back up that opinion. He said that the impropriety would be something like a large contribution to Waddell's campaign from a party, in this case, or previous interaction outside the courtroom with Waddell. As for the third prong, the adverse rulings of the prosecution, Hill Kennedy told Pendergast that she was correct and that they could not be used to unseat a judge. Hill Kennedy first went through his ruling thinking out loud, then put several cases and his interpretations of the ruling in them into the record. Then he ruled. Every aspect of his ruling was backed up by specific citations to casework, court rules, and judicial canons. He added that he had found a few more things on Westlaw, a legal search engine, that he wanted to read in the recording as supporting information for his ruling. Sean Phillips sentencing. Sean Phillips was charged with murder of the infant and went to trial in October. A jury found Phillips guilty of second-degree murder, the highest charge allowed after a court ruling, following a 3-week trial, including 2.5 days of deliberation. Sean Phillips had been sentenced in December of 2016 in the 51st Circuit Court to 19 to 45 years in prison for the second-degree murder of his daughter, Katherine "babykate" Phillips. The sentence is to run concurrent with his 10 to 15-year sentence he is currently serving for unlawful imprisonment. Phillips first was convicted in 2012 on unlawful imprisonment of his daughter and is serving 10 to 15-year sentence in the Carson City Correctional Facility. Update from April 10, 2018. The Michigan Court of Appeals Tuesday affirmed the second-degree murder conviction of Sean Phillips in the death of his infant daughter, Katherine Shelby Elizabeth Phillips, also known as babykate. Phillips had sought reversal of the conviction on 5 grounds. The defendant's interview by Detective Sergeant Tom Posma on the day of the murder was irrelevant and subjectively more prejudicial than probative and otherwise not properly admissible. The court held that the recording of the interview was properly relevant as it related to Phillips' motive to kill the victim and otherwise properly admissible. The defendant argued that the prosecution's closing argument consisted of an improper appeal to juror sympathy. The court held that the prosecution has wide latitude in arguing the facts and reasonable inferences and need to confine arguments to the blandest possible terms. The court analyzed several portions of the prosecution's closing argument in which the facts are laid out. That, by his own admission, that she was left alone and vulnerable in the woods, and the facts that her clothing had been balled up and in the pocket of his shorts, that she would therefore have been naked, as well as the defendant's admission to a fellow state trooper that he had gotten rid of the victim and that he would never be charged with murder because no one will ever find the victim. The defendant argued that the 5-page letter he wrote from prison stating that he left babykate in a peaceful place was not admissible. The argument was previously considered by the Court of Appeals in a prior appeal in this case, and the panel refused to reconsider that decision, which was allowed the letter to stay admissible. The defendant argued that there was insufficient evidence to convict him of second-degree murder. The court found that all of the elements of the offense were proven. The defendant argued for credit for time spent in jail awaiting trial. The court also rejected that argument. Baby Kate, whose body has never been found, has been missing since June 2011.